bringing you interviews with public figures and inspirational people speaking on self-improvement with empowering themes. And I'm your host, Aalia and Aizzah. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Unsugarcoated with Aalia. Once again, we just want to delve into pressing issues today that are definitely shaping the world that we live in. We're going to turn our attention to the power of storytelling in challenging stereotypes and fostering understanding in a deeply divided society. At a time when misconceptions and prejudices are rampant, authentic narratives are more crucial than ever in breaking down barriers and building bridges between diverse communities. One of the key issues we'll explore today is the representation of Muslim Americans in media. Despite Muslims making up at least 1.35% of the U.S. population, probably more, their representation in film and television is disproportionately low and often negative. A study by the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative found that from 2017 to 2019, less than 2% of speaking characters in top grossing films were Muslim. Moreover, when Muslims do appear on screen, they frequently are portrayed in stereotypical roles related to terrorism and violence, contributing to a false narrative and widespread Islamophobia and a deep misunderstanding. Another critical topic is the intersection of modern-day feminism and cultural identity. Women, particularly those from minority communities, face unique challenges as they navigate the complexities of cultural expectations and the broader feminist movement. The struggle to balance cultural heritage with the desire for gender equality is a narrative that resonates deeply across various communities, not just the Muslims, but definitely includes the Muslim American experience. Art has long been a powerful tool for social change, providing a platform for marginalized voices and offering new perspective on entrenched issues. From theater to film to visual arts and literature, creative expressions have the ability to humanize abstract issues, making them more relatable and urgent to a broader audience. Aizzah Fatima is an award-winning actor, filmmaker, and comedian. Aizzah has successfully transitioned her intimate stage play Dirty Paki Lingerie into the critically acclaimed film Americanish, the first romantic comedy about a Muslim American family navigating life in America while preserving their culture.
Mom, don't you want us to have more than this? Be something?
Yes, but first you go and get married and have children. Then go, be whatever you want.
Dude, I'm never gonna be able to afford my own place. Home's not that bad. It's a zoo, Mariam.
What's the purpose of your visit?
I'm here to find a nice Pakistani-American doctor to marry.
Jeez, it's a study group.
The MCATs aren't going to ace themselves. I want to go to Harvard. It has the best PEDS program in the country.
Hey. I gotta tell you, Roombas really freak me out. If you're gonna get a Roomba, just put it only in your room.
Hala, these prices are ridiculous. We will pay you $24 for everything.
My daughters, they think they know everything best.
You know what? I'm a grown woman.
Boys don't like girls all covered up. You're never going to get married with that scarf on your head.
I don't want to be with someone who doesn't get my values.
Our country is being overrun by immigrants.
You're working on the Douglas Smarts account. I mean, the guy is a racist.
I got a call from the hospital. I'm gonna have to go in.
You don't need to marry the first guy who shows interest in you.
Everybody's gonna get what they want. This is America. A land of dreams.
Blending acting with activism, Aizzah uses her work to challenge stereotypes, promote understanding, and highlight the experiences of modern Muslim American women. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Aizzah Fatima. Hello. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you. How are you?
I'm great. What an exciting welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So today I think you're talking to us from New York?
Yes.
Where are you in the world today?
I am in New York City, very loud New York City. You're probably going to hear sirens while we're on this call, just so you know, right outside that window over there.
No worries. It'll just make it feel all the more real, right?
Authentic. Yes.
Authentic, exactly. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be part of this episode and be a voice on this conversation. You know, first off, I have to let the audience know how I actually came to learn about you was watching Americanish. I was
oh my goodness, it's such a good story.
And I was crying after I watched it because we need more films like that. So I'm very excited for my audience to learn about you, learn about your journey getting there. But I just have to preface it with this, you know, I am so grateful for artists like you, women like you, Muslims like you, everything, New Yorkers like you, everything in between, because you make me smile and cry feeling represented, you know, on the screen. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for that. Oh my goodness. That's amazing. That's the whole point. That's why we make the art we make, you know. Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
And I know it's not easy. So
very hard, very hard. It's like pushing a thing uphill that's like constantly falling apart, and you got to gather it up again and push it up some more.
Right. Yes, I do know what you mean. So let's talk a little bit about like your early life and your career shift, because you did have one. You originally were working as a microbiologist and an ads engineer at Google.
It's so crazy.
And then you started beginning pursuing the arts. So tell us, how did that happen?
I did my undergrad in microbiology, and then I kind of very quickly shifted because I was having trouble finding jobs, and my older brother was like, hey, you know what, IT is really hot. And so I was like, okay. So I went to graduate school for computer information systems and got this dual business tech degree that landed me at Google. And it was like, you know, the job of like my dad's dreams and my brother's dreams. And I thought it was my dream for a while. I really bought it because they were so excited. In fact, all the men in my life were so thrilled with me getting that job that I was like, oh yeah, I want that job. And then I didn't. It was like very painful. It was like a slow death every day. While I was there, I decided to kind of pursue acting on the side for fun. And I took a class at NYU in the evenings, and that just led to a whole career, you know, in that direction eventually.
You know, it's funny because those experiences you draw on them, like you have in Americanish, you have like the corporate worker, you know, that's part of
Google.
Her story. Right.
That was my life at Google. I mean, it's hard to believe. Yeah, but that was that.
Yeah. No, but I know. I remember there was a time in my life where having the suit and having an ID card with my picture, even though I always hated the picture, right? Like the picture is always the worst. But like, you know, just feeling like I'm contributing to the world and I'm being a grown up and I'm doing boardroom stuff. And then after a while, it was like, okay, this is just not me.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was there, I really bought into this idea that I was saving the world somehow because I worked at Google. It's just like a brainwashing that almost happens. But yeah.
You made me think, and this is an off question, but like, because I know you're a humanitarian. I know that you're a person who really cares about things happening in the world to other people. Just recently, I'm curious what your thoughts are on watching Google's behavior. I know that they've arrested, they've fired, you know, what do you think about that? If you worked there now, I guess that's a better question.
So
if you worked there now, what do you feel like you would be doing? Do you feel like you'd be walking out, or do you feel like you would just be part of?
Yeah, I really hope that I would be walking out, you know. Honestly, the Google back then wouldn't have even behaved this way. I'm like shocked at the behavior, you know, that's coming out of there, because it was always about like building community, helping other people. It's shocking almost. I don't even know what to make of it. And in fact, the people I worked with, they're not even there anymore. So I don't even know.
So thank you for answering that, because I was just curious. I'm like, oh, that's right, she was at Google. And then you decided to start, you made Dirty Paki Lingerie. So you went to the stage first.
Yeah, it was the only thing I ever knew. I did theater stage stuff in high school, and I knew that was I think I knew it was a calling, but I didn't quite understand it. I didn't know how to pursue it, so I never did. Yeah, I mean, I never set out to make films or TV. In fact, I remember when somebody suggested like doing commercials or getting a commercial agent, which is basically like how I make all of my living these days. But I poo-pooed the idea. I was like, oh, that's not real acting. What is that? So, you know, like I did theater. It was very snobby about doing that, but it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, me as an artist, I've grown so much. And just realize how you reach different audiences with different mediums, and it's all acting. But yeah,
well, let nobody try to look down their nose at theater, to be quite honest, because it's one thing to be on set and be able to do a retake. It is a whole nother appreciation for, we had a previous guest is Michael Nori, who was the hot guy in Flashdance, right? With the, and he did Victor Victoria. And I remember asking him, like, what was his best piece of advice? And he's like, always be on time. And when I related it to his experience in theater, I was like, yeah, because I bet if you are not on time, you're messing up everything. It's like to do it repeatedly in front of an audience, a live audience all the time. Like I have a lot of respect. Let's talk about the origins of Dirty Paki Lingerie and its impact as a stage play.
I actually developed it in a class with Matt Hoverman first, and then Win Handman, where I kind of like developed the acting bits, and then like was really incredibly lucky to find this amazing director who kind of stayed with the play for many years, Erica Gould. We kind of further shaped it together, and it was part of Fringe Festival at New York. And before then, I'd done like a few plays, but nothing like this. Not like a role where for an hour I'm the only person on stage. That's a lot. That's a big, like it just takes a lot. It asks a lot of you as an actor. There was a reporter from the Wall Street Journal that came out and did a feature in the Sunday section for the Wall Street Journal, in the religion section. After that, NPR picked up the story on that Monday, and by that like Tuesday or Wednesday when we opened, our run was sold out. What was so amazing was just having Muslim and non-Muslim, like Asian, white, Jewish, whoever, all the Black, all these people just kind of coming up to us and saying, I saw myself reflected in that experience. And I think I kind of understood. I was like, oh, there's something more here. I think this is these themes, these characters, these people, like this is kind of like a universal appeal, maybe. I do remember when that run ended, I was like, oh, I guess it's over. Okay, well, back to my job at Google, you know,
right.
For a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. But then that's not where it ended.
No, it's not where it ended at all. It's the largest South Asian festival of arts that used to happen in Toronto, and we got invited there. So we went, and it was a 200-seat theater, sold out. We did nothing. We just went, sold it out. There was, in fact, a fight outside I heard about that was like people wanting to get in. It was amazing. I was like, oh, I can't. This is crazy how this is happening.
So then Americanish comes about.
Yeah, so I went to Edinburgh, came back. I had a couple of shows at the Cherry Lane Theater in New York City. I was performing there, and this super sweet filmmaker approached me after one of those shows. And she's Egyptian American. Her name is Iman Zawari. She had done a bunch of short films at that point and had won like an Emmy Award for one of her shorts and stuff. And she was like, hey, you know what? Would you ever think about like turning these characters into a feature? And I honestly was really thinking heavily about that. And I was like, the only way to really reach a lot of people is through pop culture. And in America, like that's like American films or music, right? The film was released last year with Sony, and that was our 10-year anniversary of her watching that play.
Yeah, and you had a great ensemble cast. I remember George Wendt was in there. You had Mo Amory has his little role in there. Great role.
He's so great in it. I know. Like, yeah, hire Mo Ramen for more rom-coms, guys. He's so great in that role. He really shines. But also like Kapil and, you know, the character who plays Miriam's character. I mean, these guys are all like younger actors that are really up and coming and are doing like a bunch of TV, you know, and are such phenomenal actors like Selena Qureshi, and then the two kind of Bollywood people who are really well known in Bollywood who are in it as well. The woman who played my mom, Lilette Dubey, I've actually like grown up watching her films. So it was just and David Rashi, Ajay Naidu, who is such a star and is in like every single Sundance film, every whatever. I've seen him do Shakespeare, and then he, you know, turns around and does the part he plays in our film. It's just amazing.
I know I've watched it at least twice. So,
oh,
you know.
Well, Americanish has been just amazing. I mean, we ended up doing like over 30 festivals. We won like 25 festival awards. Eventually the film was picked up by Sony International for worldwide distribution, and we also had a limited theatrical release in the US. I mean, it was like all of our, you know, wildest dreams kind of coming true, because, you know, as filmmakers, and we know where the state of film is right now, like theatrical is almost impossible. You know, films are not really getting bought at like even big festival like Sundance, Tribeca, South by. No one's buying indie film. So it's kind of amazing, the journey with this film that's happened.
I mean, you are right. It's still a difficult marketplace. Internationally, it's picking up, which is good. I'm actually happy to see that platforms are opening up. Like I just watched now I'm gonna forget the name because of course that's what my brain is gonna do right now. The women who were the original courtesans.
Yes, Hiramandi. That's
sorry,
on
excuse me.
Netflix right
Hiramandi,
now. Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I watched the entire thing. There's another one that's on there now that I haven't actually had time to watch. Of course, they're also curating it for me because that's how these things work now. These platforms know everything that I like. And of course, it's international. But what I'm saying is I like that they're having it on there. I think that shows opportunity and promise for our demographics, these minority groups of people who have our stories and are also Americans. That's a thing. And I know that for a long time, being Americans definitely tried to sell this idea of, in order to be American, you have to abandon your cultural identity. And I just disagree with that. Not everyone wants to be messaged to. They don't want to be beat over the head with, you know, what we're trying to do. So you do it in this lovely way where it's very light, it's lighthearted, it's funny, it's comedy, it's real world things that anybody can relate to no matter where you're from. Blending acting with activism. You know, essentially activism through art. How are you using your film and television work to address the stereotypes and promote the understanding of Muslim American women?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always, for me, art, that's the things I create always are about activism. I think it's by virtue of like being who, you know, I was at a panel once and there was a white woman who got up and she was much older and she stood up on the stage, I remember, and she goes, that, you know, this is her activism. She goes, because I'm a woman and I'm older and I'm on the stage, that makes me an activist because no one wants to see this body on the stage. It was really interesting. And I was like, oh, I think it's just by virtue of being who you are. Sometimes you just get like pushed into this thing. Like I think because I'm a woman and I'm Muslim and I, you know, grew up in the South or whatever, all of those combinations of me are that I think it's just like the art that I created just bends that way, you know, whether I wanted to or not. It's just my lived experience in the world, right?
Sharing your art and sharing your experiences, you know, like I said, you're inherently addressing those stereotypes because you're showing them it's not what you think. Like that, I think, is one of the biggest beautiful things about Americanish. No differently than like, you know, Rami Youssef has done or Mo Amr has done. They've shown folks, we're dealing with the same stuff you are. We have the same emotions, feelings, even within, you know, like the standard people want to put when they hear we're Muslim, right? I know for me.
Yeah, it doesn't take any extra work to do that because it's actually the truth, right? We're all just humans are all connected. We all want the same things in life, right? And so I think that's the thing that's sometimes somehow missing when other people are telling our stories for us. They're always looking at us from like this outside lens. And they think we're subhuman, right? So then that's how they write those characters. But I think when the characters are actually written from people behind the camera are Muslim, then we're able to capture that nuance and that very specific experience. And there's universality and specificity. That's the whole thing, right?
You know, okay, outside of me telling you, you know, I cried over Americanish, and a beautiful happy tears, by the way, happy tears. What have been some of the other experiences and shared stories of people who have been impacted by the work that you're doing and the representation that you're bringing?
We had an uncle at an event one time he got up and he was one of the first people to speak, and it was so touching. And he was just like, and you know, and we didn't realize, I think I didn't realize, like kind of the intergenerational conversation and the importance of it that's happening in the film. Like there's the mom character and then there's these younger girls, but also within the girls, there's an age gap, right? There's a 7-8 year age gap between the older sister and the younger sister. So it's like all these kind of different conversations. And this uncle got up and he was just like, you know, we really struggled with raising, like, I think 3 daughters, he said, in the US, and our daughters have really taught us a lot over the years, and they've taught us like things that we don't do right. And it's like I'm so grateful for this film, and I'm so grateful for the conversation it's having. But you know, I was just really touched by like not just people who are Muslim and come from this background are able to kind of identify and see themselves reflected, but it's really, I think it's for anyone who feels they've ever been othered in America, right? And you don't have to be Muslim for that.
To that point, like, have there been experiences where people have been able to share with you that watching the film cleared up misconceptions, right?
I will say, yeah, okay. So I have so many examples of this because we did such a giant tour of the whole country and we traveled everywhere when the film was in a certain place we went. So this was in Arkansas, the height of COVID. We were just coming out of stuff. Our second festival ever. It's the Gina Davis Festival in Bentonville. And there's a Muslim woman who lives there who hosted like a watch party at her house with some of her neighbors who none of them are Muslim, none of them are brown even. And she said her neighbor, who she's very good friends with, who's super Republican, was like, watched the film and then was like, had questions about, we have a Trump-like character, right? It's Sam, my character's boss in the film, and he's very Republican leading. And that's the whole, like, we wanted to set the film against the backdrop of what was actually happening in America, like post the Trump election, because that's when the film was shot. And this woman said to the Muslim lady, she goes, I didn't realize Trump affected Muslims in America this way at all. I was really surprised, right? But then it was fascinating. So this woman actually wrote to us and then she said, we were able to have a very open and honest conversation. And it's really touching. Like the group of them got together and they were like, oh, I'm getting so emotional. They were like, we're gonna, like, racism ends with us.
Oh.
And it was just like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, but that's why you also like make something comedic so you can reach those masses in that way. Exactly. Because I think preaching doesn't always work.
Feminism in Islam. Share with us your views on modern day feminism and how it intersects with your identity as a Muslim American woman.
Yeah, I mean, I think feminism is such a loaded word, right? Because there's like, I have grown up with a very westernized idea of what feminism means, because in the West, just a few years ago, there was the whole women taking off their tops, right? For their feminism and saying, this is my jihad or whatever, because of what was happening in Iran. So, and I feel like it was almost like being a little bit disrespectful to Muslim women who do cover up. For their feminism, right? So covering up is your feminism in Islam. In America, at least, like the Muslim women I know in America are covering up for their feminism.
Right.
So it's such an interesting disconnect, I feel like. I remember I was in Pakistan. It was the last time I was there, which I just mentioned. I was touring with the US State Department. I remember we were going through all these villages and I saw like so many miles and miles of just like women working in these villages with like carrying stuff on top of their heads and men sitting on charpais smoking their shisha.
Right.
So I was like, wow, this is feminism. This is feminine. These women are freaking working all day long to provide food for their families. And these men are not. This is feminine. So I feel like feminism looks like such different things depending on where you are and where you're from. And it looks very different for a Muslim woman in America sometimes than it does for others. Well, and that's sort of, the film highlights that in a way, right? There's a character we have that does cover up, that does wear hijab, and that is her part of her activism and her feminism.
Yeah. And to me, feminism is, I have a choice in whether, that should be my choice into whether I want to or not. And I say this, like I just literally like a few days ago on social media, a Muslim brother was like, okay, if you're Muslim, why don't you have hijab on? And I'm like, okay, buddy, here we go. Listen, I already got a dad and a husband. You are neither. So go find a wall to talk to because it ain't going to be me, right? Like, I think hijab is a beautiful thing. And if you want, you should. When I'm in Dubai, actually, I love being able to wear my abayas and like just chill.
They're cute. They're kind of hot.
They are super hot. I brought one back. I want to wear it around just, it's like.
I have one.
Super chic. I know. We'll get together and we'll go down and have
We'll just wear it. Yeah. It's cool.
And then you have, your character who's like this modern woman. Hey, she has dates with men.
She's doing the thing. She's dating.
Her thing.
Yeah,
and it in no way diminishes either of those characters, whatever they choose, as Muslim women, because our journeys are our own. Our deen, as they say, 100%. Is our own.
Yes. And I think as a filmmaker, like that was the most important thing to me. I was just like, well, those characters like come from Dirty Paki Lingerie, the play. So as just a writer, playwright, all the things, it's so important. If I'm going to write, look, first of all, I'm just one person. I can never, encompass every single person's experience with Islam. And I'm not representing all of that. But something I really wanted to do with the play and the film both was show different sides of this. that comes from just my own personal experience within my own family.
Yep.
We have such a we're three sisters. You know, my mom is a super hijabi who kind of grew up in Saudi Arabia, and so like, well, the whole thing, because that's the cultural thing there, right?
Sure.
The niqab and the whole thing, that's the culture. And so, you know, I have sisters-in-law who cover, you know, I flirted with the idea of hijab for a little while when I was a younger teenager, and then decided to take it off. So all those experiences are kind of like, I'm like, okay, you know, I have a lot of tremendous respect for people who do it and people who don't. It's a choice. And I think that, to me, if I were to describe what feminism is, that's what it is. It's a choice.
Yeah.
You said it earlier, 100%. And I wanted to make sure, like, we showed that, because I think, like, the Western media's obsession with, like, Muslim women is like, oh, they're hijabi, but then also they're battered and abused, and how can we save them?
Yeah.
It's like,
they're so oppressed. No,
it shouldn't be like further from the truth. Like, honestly, look, in my personal experience, I don't know any woman who wears a hijab who's like oppressed. I don't. So maybe I mean, not to say that doesn't exist. That exists in every place. But yeah. But I'm like, well, why don't we ever see the other side? What is the other side? And we don't see it. So that was really important for me.
Well, I mean, and when you talk about women, feminism, and oppression, a Stepford wife who has to look a certain way, who has their own, is if you want it, like,
it's another kind of oppression, right?
It's another kind of oppression. And, you know, when women have been used as currency, I mean, I think that when people forget to step back and look at the history of women in the world and in society, we've been used as currency. We have fought for our rights. In fact, you know, I had someone who told me recently, when we were talking about the college campus encampments, you know, he was like, well, I just don't believe. It wasn't that because there was violence that I saw at the encampments, but there was violence perpetrated against them. And it was interesting, though, because he said, well, you shouldn't have to be violent to get your point across. And I'm like, well, no. But unfortunately, when it comes to people standing up for themselves, if you look at images of women during the women's suffrage movement in America, they were getting beat on the street. Women were getting harassed by men. It was not this beautiful, oh, women are out there on the street looking for their rights, we're going to support them. No, it was the complete opposite. Anytime, civil rights, right? No matter what. But with women, we've definitely have been married off for, you know, people always want to say, like, well, Muslims do this. Okay, have you seen what other cultures have done with their women? Because
in Europe and America, in the beginning, people were just married off for like whatever, an alliance, money, property. They were property. Women were property. They didn't have any rights. This is just America, not that long ago, right?
Absolutely. So it's always an interesting conversation when we come to how we get our rights, how we stand up for ourselves, the resistance, the pushback that we get for that, and then the resiliency that's really had to be endured by some incredible women in history and supporting men who have been there to get where we are today.
Well, but also let's not forget, like, Islam gave women the right to vote way before European women had that right.
Yes.
Right? It's like, so
and own property.
Islam, and own their property and not be treated like cattle. Right. Muslim women had those rights like centuries before anyone else had those rights. So it's interesting. And I feel like, again, who's telling the story and how are these things getting lost in translation? You know, which is interesting, Aalia, something you said earlier, and I've myself quoted that USC Annenberg study many times. And what I've realized, like, thinking like more about that is this: yes, like a little over 1%, maybe more of the population in America is Muslim, but American media is global media. And 25% of the world's population is Muslim, and Islam is the second largest growing religion in the world, behind Christianity at like 30%, right? So it's like, when we are importing our culture to the rest of the world and we're showing Muslims as terrorists, that's a problem. Right. It becomes a global issue, right? So absolutely, we need to change these images on our screen for the world, not just for the 1.5% of the population that's Muslim in America, but really the global population.
Absolutely.
And that's the majority.
No, I love that you say that. And notice that I said at least, because I never trust these statistics, right?
No, we don't trust
there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that won't even, you know, for fear when it comes to public statistics. They will not admit, you know, for fear of what that is going to mean to their families. Because, like you said, Trump was trying to kick out Muslims during his, you know, little moment.
Well, not only that, I think forever. I was just talking to an Arab friend of mine, and they were like, yeah, you know, on the consensus when they would come out when I was growing up, my family would always say we were white, because they're from the Caucasus, or
Right.
whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Technically.
But like, fine, okay, you are white technically, I get it, but they're also Muslim, so it's interesting. Like, we don't even know who's reporting.
We
what.
really don't. They don't. I mean, same thing with Mexican Americans. For a long time, they were considered white. So our statistics do not properly reflect the diversity within our country. So that's one thing. But on that, I agree with you, and I love the way that you've been able to leverage and utilize your skills and showcase to the world these stories. What has ever been the most challenging part of navigating that dual identity for you?
I think when I was younger, it's because of this, right? It's because we, from our parents who are immigrants, were never taught like we're American. They were always like, oh, you're Pakistani. And then the whole world around you is also telling you you're not American.
Right.
So I think as a young kid, that was a really complex thing. And honestly, like as a Muslim identity, I remember when this shift happened exactly. So I told you earlier, I was doing my show in 2011. And so often it wasn't until I was like doing the show and I was on a panel, and I think it was at Arkansas, University of Arkansas. They had a panel, and afterwards they had a reception, and they made a cake and they put a flag of Pakistan and a flag of America on it, half and half. And I was like, oh, that's like me. I'm not like one thing, am I? And shortly after that, this must have been in 2015 or 2016, shortly after that, the media, the world, everybody started talking about this Muslim American identity. If you really seriously chart it, it wasn't in our everyday conversation to say, because we are sort of like the youngest immigrants to America, right? Like Italian Americans and Irish Americans, they came a little bit longer than us. So we're sort of still like finding the language to define ourselves. And I think it's taken me as an adult to be like, oh, I am American, I am Pakistani. I was actually born in Saudi Arabia. So I was like, I identify as Saudi. I lived there for a little bit when I was a young kid. I also grew up in Mississippi, and now I'm a New Yorker. So I am all of those identities, and it is okay. It is okay to be all of those things.
I could not agree with you more. It is absolutely okay. And I think that's the thing people have to understand. It's a shared experience now, because especially with the way immigration has worked in the last 100 years, even more so with planes and the way, our DNA like how I talk about how my DNA now comes back from 16 major demographics or regions, that is a reflection of America at the end of the day. To me, I am just very representative of, but like you, having grown up, having dark hair, dark eyes, and people always being like, so where are you from? You couldn't possibly be American, right? And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, I could have that conversation over and over again, because it just...
No, and I get it. And I also grew up it's weirdly in a tiny little town in the South where everyone was blonde, whether naturally or bottle, I don't know. But then I stood out. They're like, what, where are you from?
Probably a lot of bottle too.
Everybody does, maybe. But anyway, yeah. And I think, that's perfect. Like everybody's a little bit Americanish, right? We're like a, it's the whole rainbow. It's not just one thing. It's just like all the things, all the ways, Yeah.
No, and if anything, I've learned over time to appreciate that I am different. I think there was a time when I just wanted to be, it's funny, I grew up in, when I was younger, I lived in Napa, and Napa is a very, Caucasian town, especially when I was growing up there. And it felt, I used to want to be a Jennifer or a Monica or, Melissa, but then I grew up and I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not them. What are your final thoughts, messages that you'd like to convey to not just the Muslim community, but Muslim women community out there that are still struggling with feeling comfortable in their skin and feeling comfortable with knowing that, they are beautiful just as they are. They are just, like, what is your message to them?
Follow your heart. I know it's really a hard thing to do. And like, that's one of the reasons I actually made this film, because in the making of it, I realized I was like, oh my God, it's like so hard. I identify as like the images of like romance and beauty that we see in rom-coms. It's always like the dude wants the blonde woman. always, right?
Right.
So like there's something about Mary, all the films we've grown up with, like even older, like You've Got Mail, all those problematic films that we love, and now we're like, that dude was gaslighting her the whole time. That was really, now we have a word for it, right? But before we did it. But yeah, but all those women are always like white and blonde. So it honestly, in the making of it, what I've realized is in talking to other women as well, like they always like identified themselves and their own sense of beauty as like proximity to whiteness. Like, how white is your skin? How blonde can you be? Can you dye your hair? All those things. And I think, you know, it's important to have these images of like brown women falling in love with whether other brown men, and brown men wanting these brown women back, you know, in a romantic sort of way. So I think just, you know that you're enough, that you're unique, and just, you know, I mean, do the thing you want to do with your life, man. Don't let anybody else hold you back.
I love that. And I think you've shown that. You show that in your work. You show that with what you do. I know with your play, and I know with Americanish, and I know you have other things coming forth. You're not done. I saw you on a commercial the other day. I was like, you know, I know you are
Oh my
doing
goodness,
things.
Aalia. Thank goodness for that commercial, girl. It's like, it's hard out there right now with SAG-AFTRA and the strikes. And thank goodness this commercial's been running for a while. So yeah, that's amazing.
Good.
The thing I used to poo-poo, where I'm like, commercials.
Hey, if it's good enough for Sam Jackson or Jennifer Garner, I mean, it's good enough for you. Like, you know, I want to thank you so much for being here with us today. I know I could talk to you for hours and hours, but I appreciate your time. And yeah, and just before I do, for anyone who wants to follow you on social media and anywhere else that people can go to support and follow your work.
Sure. So I'm just my full name, Aizzah Fatima, on all the social medias. You can also follow some of my other work. You can follow Americanish Film. You can also follow our stand-up / TV pilot that's on Fuse Plus right now called Muslim Girls DTF. We're going to be touring with that show all around the world. So we'll probably be coming, and the US. So we'll probably be coming to one of the cities where you live pretty soon.
I wish you all the luck, and I can't wait to have you back again. And next time in person, we'll get you when you're in LA next time in the studio.
Yeah.
So, but thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for being with us today. And to our audience at home, listen, you definitely want to check out her work. You want to support these films. I even tell my kids all the time, like, even just out of curiosity, go support it so that you give other people the opportunity to make this type of content over and over again. As a woman, I want to say that I just really appreciate the representation that Aizzah has brought to the world for her community, for our community in different ways. And, you know, I hope that you've heard a little bit of our conversation and said, oh, maybe I don't know everything that there is to know. Or maybe you are a Muslim American or Muslim woman who's like, okay, thank you. They're giving me permission to be myself. Yes. Well, not that we had to give you permission. You've had it all along. But, you know, just live life the way you feel is best serving you and your community. Keep your eyes on the prize is your deen, your life, your benefits, and your family. So with that, I'm just going to say thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you so much for letting us be unsugarcoated. Take care.